You know that there are humans who have the ability to just go to a restaurant and order what's on the menu? That is what new Facebook did. They just put everything, they hid everything away. And I'm like, no, because there are hidden onions and there are needs. I can't have peppers. I don't want fucking potatoes and things. I can't just be treated like other people. But also I have to go to the bathroom. So
yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Do we want to wait to start the show until you get back?
I don't know. Why don't you warm up? You ready?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Hi. Hello. Hi, Facebook. How are you? I'm doing good. Yeah, I guess I'll just talk about the Enlightened Couch Potato podcast for a while. We haven't done this podcast in a good little while here. I've been moving and a lot of other stuff going on. But this is a little passion project for Adrianne and I, because one day in conversation, or over the course of a couple of years of being friends in conversation, we discovered that we both had a kind of unique approach to watching movies and TV that we shared. And that was based on the idea that most people think that watching movies and TV is like a waste of time or an indulgence or something you do. It's like junk food. It's not good for you, but you do it anyway because you can't help yourself. I think a lot of people have that perspective. I know I did for a long time. But the more that I have learned about the inner workings of the unconscious mind, the more I've studied archetypes and story structure and Joseph Campbell and how stories are the way that our mind thinks, and they're a hugely powerful transformational tool. Great stories can change us in a way that direct communication often doesn't. And movies and TV are arguably the most advanced form of storytelling that human beings have come up with so far. You can make an argument that video games may actually be a step further because they include you as an interactive participant in the storytelling. But movies and TV are like where music and painting or frame by frame, and it's like theater and music all comes together into this multi-$100 million metaphor that you can, if you learn how, you can put yourself into a mindset where stories like this can influence you in a positive direction. And that's basically what we talk about here in the Enlightened Couch Potato Show. We talk about some of our tips and tricks and how we figured out how to do this. And largely, we sort of just share with each other our own journey through watching movies and TV. But it's such a gift to be able to let go of the guilt of watching the stuff that you love to watch. We live in a golden age of storytelling right now. And I love all the time that I spend watching movies and TV. And it's quite a lot, but I find it incredibly valuable. And I don't have that weird voice that's telling me I should be doing something else anymore when I do it. Weirdly, I actually find that I feel like I'm in a lot more control too. Like it feels less compulsive because I'm not resisting it. I'm enjoying it, and then I feel like I'm better at kind of setting boundaries around watching movies and TV. Have you found that to be true too?
Yeah, well, I definitely watch with a different perspective, and it's been a very long time that I've felt any sort of guilt for watching. I've had an awareness when I'm watching more than I had planned to, or just more lately. My last few weeks, I've watched a lot of TV, and with the awareness that I'm like doing it because I just want to calm my mind from the other things going on, and I just decided to like pull back, slow down my world on purpose.
Yeah.
So I also know that I sit down ready, and sometimes I have challenges picking the next thing I'm going to watch because I know that I want to get something of value. Now, certainly I could just pick anything and ask my unconscious mind, hey, give me, what I want right now. And I've found in the last month or so, and even since like COVID world started, a little bit higher level of stress and challenge picking a show because I know it's going to be important and it's going to help, like it's going to be part of the metaphors I live with for a while, and the time that I spend. I'm like, oh, is it going to be good? Am I going to feel good? Is it going to be good use of my time? So it's taken me longer to pick what I want to watch.
Yeah.
And then because I don't have the same availability of friends and hugs and all that sort of thing in my life right now, sometimes it's really hard to let go of a show. And when it's over, I'm just like,
Firefly.
I don't want to meet new people yet. I'm not ready.
I still feel a genuine sense of loss and grief around Firefly. Like, I want to live in that world for more seasons. Damn it.
Yes. Yeah. So, I'm thrilled that we at least get to share this philosophy with other people. Hopefully those watching are like, oh, I do know that when I've shared this as a guest speaker in a summit, and I shared this strategy of watching television and allowing it to be transformational, and then how the heck that works, a lot of people were like, yes, I thought I was weird, I watched that way, or oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And now they're watching differently. So I'm kind of thrilled. We've been how many weeks? 3-4 weeks? How long?
Yeah, I said it's been a little intermittent lately, for sure. We both had some stuff going on. I moved. This is my new place.
Yay!
I haven't given you the tour yet, but I should at some point. Well, we are, I would say we're officially moved in as of Sunday, because that's when the maintenance guy finally came over to fix all the stuff that wasn't working that we discovered when we moved in. Shoot. Like, around half the power outlets didn't work, and we didn't have a washer and dryer for like a week and a half because the dryer vent, we couldn't fix it, and the hookup for the washer was leaking, and there was a few other things. But now that they came over and they fixed it and the landlords were cool about it, now I'm like, okay, I think this is gonna work. And we have a kick-ass new washer and dryer that sing a really pretty song whenever they're giving you a notification. It has this little like cheery like da 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 da, and like every time we hear it, we're like, oh yay, the laundry's done.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty great, and it's wonderful to just have room. I mean, we had intermittently 6 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment for a good portion of the quarantine, where we weren't going anywhere, and we were just that's not tenable.
No, that sounds awful. I am quite lucky I have 2 roommates, but we barely see each other. We are in separate parts of the house. I feel like I live alone mostly, except for the times when sometimes I'm really, really hungry and someone's in the kitchen. And when I say that to humans, they're like, well, just go in the kitchen. And I was like, well, so we're trying to be distanced from each other as much as possible, not breathing. But also my kitchen is this wide. So, and so am I. And it's not, you can't, I can barely.
That doesn't sound like a 2-person kitchen at all.
No, it's never been a 2-person kitchen, no matter how helpful somebody wants to be. It's like, get out. Claustrophobic. If I could be Spider-Man.
Yeah. And just
be
like
on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Get the fork. Okay, great. I would, but that is not Spider-Man. I like it.
Saul Spider-Man.
I just like it better as a probably Jewish name instead of
exactly.
Spider-Man.
Okay, so you want to talk about movies and stuff?
Yeah, so I have 2 shows that I am pretty sure you've watched that I watched in the last 3 weeks, and one I think you haven't.
Okay.
So maybe I'll start with the more recent one that you haven't seen, and then we can talk about the others. I'll just tell you what they are.
Sure.
Okay, so I watched Cobra Kai a few weeks back.
I watched the first season, but I haven't finished the second one.
Oh,
The plan was to finish it before the third one comes out.
sure. The Americans.
Oh, you watched that? Did you watch the whole?
That.
You watched the whole thing?
I paused in the season 6. I haven't seen the whole thing. I paused for reasons. I was telling you earlier that I am now in adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
Remedy lifestyle plan instead of I had been in, hey, let's get fit and let's just utilize this time plan. And so when I kept like diligently like eating in a way where I could build muscle and lean out and I could like kill it. But instead, like my hair started thinning and I'm always dehydrated and I just kept going up and down the same 3 pounds. And I'm like, what the fuck? And my body's like, we're doing it. We're holding all the fat with the intensity that you are pushing for different results because we might have to leave. And I'm like, you beast, you brilliant, like evolutionarily evolved beast of health and systems that I don't fucking align with right now. I just want smaller pants.
Yeah.
Smaller pants so I can take photos. But when I'm on small, that doesn't mean thin my hair and fuck. So instead of that plan, I'm on the plan of calm. See, it's working so well. Calm.
Oh, right.
Calm and like restorative movement.
Yeah, rest and rejuvenation.
I have had so many naps. I've had all of the naps this week.
Good.
And waking up
That's
early
fabulous.
and walking. So I got to the parts in The Americans where one of the characters is exhausted. And I was like, I am too much in rapport with the show right now. And it's making me sad because if I wasn't watching this, I would be falling asleep on the couch by myself. So I switched shows and it took me a while. I went through that stress of like watching bad trailers on Amazon for dumb movies and other things. And then I remembered that I'd seen this photo in Instagram. And so I reached out to my friend who sometimes just like gets me access to shows. And he uploaded this show called Gentleman Jack, which is an HBO and BBC production based on the diaries of Anne Lister. And Anne Lister is pretty fascinating. Anne Lister is a land-owning woman, lesbian, although that wasn't a term back then, in the early 1800s. So she was a woman of means who traveled a lot. She like climbed mountains. She got into the coal business. She's freaking brilliant, self-taught, got in with a bunch of high society people and had a bunch of like scientists and medicine men like teach her. So she's like looking over like cadavers and brains. Like she's crazy interesting. And she is a diarist who had written, she's a very kooky lady. She'd written just in high levels of detail every moment of her life pretty much. And the torrid stuff, the 11 or so affairs with women were all written in code. And her diaries are so detailed and fascinating. They had to figure out how to decode them, and they're like 22 volumes of somewhat that are now part of like some of the most important documents of like English history. Also, she managed to have one of the first lesbian weddings because she and this woman, they went and they took sacrament in a church, and they got a plaque there. Anyway, so this show is about this ridiculously fascinating woman. And it's an interesting thing because like people of means get to have different access. And the thing that I love about this show, there are a couple things. I have never been so deeply aware in the best way of really good cinematography and music and like the choices working so well to elucidate a character or a time, as well as drop the viewer into the pace of the person. So here I am, adrenal fatigue on the couch, kind of feeling sorry for myself because it's not my first rodeo with like health challenges, right? Like, fuck, this one's not my fault. It's external circumstances, right? But I'm like, ugh. And I leave one show of awesomeness, but I'm just too tired and they're too tired. And I'm like, I can't hang. To this woman who just literally walks a different pace in the world. So this is someone who just like walks everywhere, super athletic, walks like a man, but even freaks them out. So they like the camera work drops you into the speed and the sturdiness of this particular character.
Wow.
And I hate period pieces generally. Like, who's the lady? Jane Austen. I fucking hate that stuff because I hate that time period of floofy, here's what women are supposed to do. But here you have a woman who's just a rebel in that time, which makes it more badass and even more sexy because it's so against the stuff I hate about the time period. And one of the fun themes is this idea that most of us feel strange somehow, strange or different or weird. It's the secret truth of everybody is that we all feel weirder than someone else. And just to like have this show be about someone who's like set apart and stranger than other people and still like going after what she wants and being true to herself in a particular way. It's fucking amazing. And
sounds fantastic.
The other thing that's great, like the acting is spectacular, like super believable, everybody, the choices. And so it's all like a really beautiful team working together. So you've got some of it, you dropped into the speed of Anne as she's wandering around the world. And then suddenly the next scene is just like pastoral, like the servants are out and they're just slower and they're doing their thing and everything fucking matches so well. It just reminds me of precision and execution and what happens when you surround yourself with the right people. And I'm ridiculously inspired by it.
I love it. It sounds like you found exactly what you needed right now, too.
God.
I think a lot of the thing that you can get from TV shows or movies is like an energy or a flavor. It's like you can use songs for a particular emotional state, and it's like, okay, listen to this 3-minute song and it's going to bring up a certain feeling for you if you let it. And it might feel different for different people, but the way it makes you feel is what matters. And sometimes a show is just like, it's like going and getting to visit and spend time in a world that makes you feel a certain way. I mean, I think that's what people get a lot from superhero movies is the feeling of being empowered, of being able to overcome and feel like you have more control than you might in your life.
Yeah. Well,
normally.
It's an interesting thing. And I don't think it's subtle. I mean, just me calling it out, the ways that the camera and the shots, you get in an action film, like, oh, we're making it intense. But in some ways, the cinematography is more intense than what's actually happening. And so they're kind of manipulating it. What's interesting is that it seems as though the cameras are doing a dance with the actors and just augmenting what's already there and bringing you into like, oh my God, the way that this camera is moving around this person's face is representing the internal emotion that is coming out of that person's face. And I'm just like, certainly people have accomplished this before, but I don't know that I've seen. I might be overselling it, but I don't know.
Well, maybe you're just becoming more aware of it too. And maybe in this movie or show, because some of the themes are so personal to you, maybe that also helps like amplify it.
That makes sense.
I watched a video recently. Oh, I would love to give him credit. Nope. I'm not gonna remember right now. His YouTube channel's called Collative Learning, I believe is what it's called. And he does mostly movie analysis stuff, but he's fairly obviously trained in NLP and hypnosis from just listening to him.
Yeah.
I've actually corresponded with him a little bit, and I've confirmed that.
Cool.
So he has a book on his website too about his own philosophies on personal development and stuff. I bought it and read it, and it's good. He's really smart. So I
Yeah.
love his perspective on movies and stuff. And he loves to analyze Kubrick, which I'm an enormous fan. But he also, he's the guy who I first heard about how in The Shining, the hotel is actually constructed in ways that make it impossible.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
No. Oh.
That there's things where like you're walking down a hallway and the camera's panning this direction and you see a door on that wall and they're in a hallway, and then they come out of the hallway into an area and the camera pans around and you see the other side of that wall and there's nowhere that door goes and you don't notice it consciously, but subliminally your brain is like, burr, burr, like, wait, what? And it gives you this subliminal sense of unease. And he points out like tons of this stuff.
Nice.
So we did one on Alien. And some of the stuff that he points out as far as like subliminal imagery and stuff, I don't know. It feels like he could be stretching, or obviously he's looking for it. But he said, like, you have to understand that there are filmmakers who put this much thought into it. So there's all these different shots that he pointed out where the characters will walk through a doorway or an archway or something. And if you turn the image on its side, it looks like teeth. And it looks like two sets of teeth.
Right.
And so like there's all these little things that you're like, no freaking way that somebody would like design, but somebody had to design the set to look exactly like that. And all the little things that look like teeth could have been pointing this way, and they're not. They're pointing this way. So it looks like it's going to bite them as they're coming through. And it was like one of dozens of things that he pointed out that are all these little tricks to make you feel stuff that it's the invisible language of cinema.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It's awesome. I loved it.
When you were telling me that, it reminded me what I actually watched, because I think Cobra Kai was like way a long time ago. The three recent things I've watched are Ratched, the new show based
Ratcheted, is that it?
I think it's just Ratched. It's just Nurse Ratched. It's based on Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something like that.
Yeah, I had zero desire to watch that. As soon as I heard that it existed, I was like, I don't want to watch that. And I'm open to being persuaded. And my feeling on that is, I don't know if I've shared this with you, but the closest thing to a phobia that I think I've ever had is some deep triggers around lobotomies.
Yeah, that's fair.
And there's something about I went deep into this to try to heal it once, where I actually went and looked up interviews with some of the last, I'm going to call them victims of lobotomy as a medical procedure.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got why, like deep under the surface, why it triggered me so much. But that movie really bothered me. The One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Right. And so to give that character depth and to be like, oh, here's how this person became like this, I'm like, no, I kind of want to hate her.
Yeah. Well, I recognize that the three, Ratched, The Americans, and Gentleman Jack, are all highly stylized shows. They're making really cool, deliberate choices to draw people in a world. And Ratched is gloriously, the costume design stands out, the set design stands out. And I think for me, what was most fascinating about trying to like this origin story of this really terrifying character that we haven't visited in a really long time. Like Cuckoo's Nest, was it early 80s, 70s? It's all old.
70s.
I think 70s. Yeah. So they're introducing this for that same generation, but also new generations of people who haven't seen it. There's a really weird cross section of psychology, because it's set at one of the heights of psychology. So the body of work that we're from, that we utilize, is birthed in this sort of time period. And what's interesting is for someone, we know this, for someone to become who she becomes, there has to be trauma there.
Right. Hurt people.
Yeah. Well, and then what's also fun is it's the anti-hero story, which is always delightful, unless you happen to already know that you have a phobia around this area. But the anti-hero story is supremely delightful because the guess is, can you sympathize with this person? And the magical trick is she's
that
fascinating.
Actress is so good.
She's
if
so
anybody
good.
could fucking pull it off, like her, Toni Collette.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's delightful. It's a little disturbing, but much like Dexter, but only with good acting.
Right.
They drop us into, wow, totally get it. And it's weirdly sexy, unexpectedly sexy in places. I did not see that coming.
Well, yeah, I may give it a shot. It's not high on my list, I'll tell you that.
It's fascinating because it drops you into I think it's the 60s too. So there's a lot about dropping you into that time period. It reminds me a little of Wizard of Oz when the color comes on. And so it's in this like hyper color space. The music is like just a little edgy and interesting.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have a long list. I don't know which thing. How about I just list a bunch of things and you can tell me what you want to hear me talk about?
Yeah.
So lately I've been watching a ton of Archer. We went back through and watched from the beginning. I love that show. It did get a little slow in one season, but I don't think I got what they were doing the first time through, and so I sort of got it this time, and I was still like, it's a little slow. But then they picked it up with the next two seasons, so we're finally up to, I think we're almost caught up. Been watching the new season of The Boys, really enjoying that. Mm-hmm. Let's see, we watched movies. We've been watching a lot of horror lately. So we watched one of my all-time favorite H.P. Lovecraft homages called In the Mouth of Madness.
Ooh.
With Sam Neill from Jurassic Park and Event Horizon. It's just a wonderful, like, here's what it feels like to go insane kind of movie, and it's very fun. It's a little hokey at times, for sure. It's definitely not Guillermo del Toro's take on H.P. Lovecraft, which I still really want to see him do that. I don't know if you've heard this story. I don't know if you're that familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, but he has a very famous book called At the Mountains of Madness, I believe is what it's called. And In the Mouth of Madness was definitely a homage to that. But apparently Guillermo del Toro was going to make an adaptation, big budget movie, and then Ridley Scott made Prometheus, which had a very similar basic plot structure. And they were like, nope, can't make it anymore. Which sucks because Prometheus was kind of garbage, and I would have loved to have seen that. So maybe one day he'll still get to make that. Yeah,
let's knock on his door.
Yeah, exactly.
And stand away and
what else? We watched a delightfully over-the-top and very disturbing kind of fun horror movie called Slither. It's made by James Gunn, who did Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's Nathan Fillion stars in it. And it's like structurally, it's a perfect horror monster movie. And you're just like, and it's got those moments where you're like, oh, God. And I don't like torture porn. I don't watch Saw or Hostel or any of that kind of crap. I'm interested in the story, and like The Thing is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and this has a lot of those like creature effects and stuff that's so much fun. We watched oh boy, I know there's action movie. Did we talk about Dread? Have you seen that movie?
I don't think so. No.
So comic book called Judge Dredd.
Right.
And there was a Sylvester Stallone movie that we shall not speak of. And then more recently,
that's the one, is Judge Dredd the one with the like the 3 seashells and the sex goggles?
No, that's actually
Demolition
that movie is actually pretty great. Demolition Man, give it a shot. If you're watching this and you haven't seen Demolition Man or you haven't seen it in a long time, that movie is like, it's kind of prescient in certain ways. And like one of my favorite jokes in that thing is they take them out to a fancy restaurant or a fancy meal at Taco Bell, because Taco Bell is the only surviving restaurant chain after the fast food wars. And I'm just like, you can't drop a line like fast food wars and not describe them anymore. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the sex goggles, although their trip seemed a little rough, but I think those are on the horizon.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. That movie's great. Judge Dredd was horrible. Except we did get the famous Sylvester Stallone meme where he says, "I am the law."
That's true.
And yeah. So recently, 2017, maybe something like that, they made a movie with Carl Urban from The Boys.
Okay.
As the titular character, and it was just called Dread. And you
just wanted to say titular. How long have you been holding that for?
What I was trying to do was say it and not draw attention to it. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, wait, let's go back. Rewind.
So one of the key characteristics of that character of Dredd is he never takes off his helmet. And Sylvester Stallone was a big movie star, so of course they were going to show his face. And Carl Urban, being an actually committed actor, was like, no, of course we get. And it's so good. Like, you love like well-structured action, right?
Yeah.
Watch it. It's awesome. Great female villain, who's really just like vicious and really fun to watch. Oh boy, I know I've seen other things. What else? We've been... Anything else specifically? I probably have a list here if you give me a second.
I don't know. Did you have any like memories, like arcs? And then like having you like shivers of whoa, now I know my life better.
Well, I'm trying to think. Did we talked about What Dreams May Come? That was a while ago. Did we talk about The Game?
I don't know.
Have you ever seen that movie? Michael Douglas?
Maybe it's been a while. I think I have. But...
I don't think I can even describe the movie without spoiling it, because it's quite twisty.
Okay. Yeah.
It's one of the more mind-blowing, twisty movies I've ever seen, where you just go on this thing where you're like, by the end, you are as battered and confused as the main character. And then the end happens and you're just like, how are they going to this is how the movie ends? And then it doesn't. And it's so good. It's I think it was hard to see coming. And like, that's good with a twist end movie.
Nice. Okay. I might look into it. He was not my favorite person ever.
This is a good use of Michael Douglas. He's not my favorite actor either. Yeah. This is a good use of Michael Douglas. If you have not seen it, I don't want to say anything else about it, but trust me, it's worth your time. Last night, actually, just occurred to me, speaking of twist endings, I introduced Faye to The Usual Suspects. She'd never seen that.
Nice.
That moment, spoilers, that moment at the end of Usual Suspects, when he is putting together what had happened, and then Kevin Spacey, who it's still a little hard to not like, way to ruin your whole fucking career for us, dude, because it's hard to like just watch him and not see Kevin Spacey now. But that moment when he's walking down the street and he's got the limp and they're just showing his feet, and then it switches to where he doesn't have the limp, and that's the reveal. I think that is one of the great moments in cinematic history, that where everything that's built up. It's actually kind of a stupid movie if you stop and think about it for like more than 2 seconds. Right. It's a lot like a Chris Nolan movie. I love Chris Nolan's movies, and they do not stand up to scrutiny, especially the Batman movies. Like
Sure.
there's so much stuff in there where, but the thing about him is he's such a talented filmmaker that he can, you miss it. You don't notice it, especially the first time through. It's like a magic trick where he's like, look at this. And then they move the thing and you didn't notice that the thing just disappeared. So, Usual Suspect is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
In that, if you really stop and think about it, why did he have to reference stuff in the room? Why couldn't he just make it all up completely? Like the guy wouldn't have put it together unless he had been saying stuff that he saw in the room. But still, like first time through, when you take somebody through that is. What are your top twist ending movies? So mine, you got Sixth Sense, Fight Club, Usual Suspects, I think is up there for me. I would definitely put The Game on that list. I actually was kind of surprised at the end of The Village. I know that M. Night Shyamalan, I probably got that wrong. Now I can't even say it without making it into a joke. I think he's sort of become a joke, and a lot of people hated that movie, but I actually liked The Village. I thought that was pretty good.
I don't know that I've seen a whole lot of twist ending movies. I did not call the ending of Sixth Sense. Although what's interesting is I think these days I do now have more ability to predict things because
that
of
radar.
that.
Yeah. There was a movie that came out like a year or two after The Sixth Sense. It was called The Others, and it was with Nicole Kidman. And a lot of people really loved this movie. I was in a movie theater watching the trailer for it. Yeah. And I jokingly looked to all my friends and was like, they're all ghosts. That's the end. And then we went and watched the movie like 6 months later, and I was like, God damn it! Like, that's not... Yeah, spoilers. Sorry, we should put spoiler alert on this episode because we're spoiling a bunch of things.
Yeah. Okay, can we talk about The Americans?
Yeah. So I didn't actually finish it. Okay. I heard that, and I don't mean to plant this, but I heard that they do not stick the landing very well, and that there are some plot threads for some of the characters that don't get wrapped up in a satisfactory way. And I kind of lost interest near the beginning of the last season, and Liz and I we ate that series up before then. It like the Ozark. Yes. Hits that like we are a team, and no matter what challenges that we face, we are gonna figure this out. And I love that. And it's just this constant feeling of like, how are they gonna
we should go rewind. So The Americans is a show about two Russian spies who were placed in the US, highly trained to be a married couple in the US and still work for the KGB.
Somewhat based on a true story, or based on a true concept, at least, that there actually were sleeper agents who came here, had children, and their own children did not know they were agents for the Russian government. That really happened.
Yeah. So we drop in like the first 5 seasons. We don't have to talk about the 5 seasons. So what's fascinating about it is, on one hand, there's a love story that happens because here's two highly trained. I always love movies where the couple is well balanced in the sense that they can both save each other, and they both are resourceful, and they both respect each other because they're equally badass. They might have different ways that they're badass.
Right.
But so what's great is that like we're in this together, we take care of each other, and they don't have to they do look over their shoulder to make sure and whatever, but they know he knows she's taken care of, she knows he's got it. That level of being in intense situations and then finding a way. And And similar to like the Mission Impossibles where nothing ever goes as planned.
Right.
And the agility that you've trained yourself into is the ability to deal with whatever is needed at the time. So when I was watching this, I already had planted in my mind whenever, like years ago, you were watching it and you were excited about it. I'd already had that in my head. And then I also noticed here they are in the 80s needing to have a high level of behavioral flexibility, high level of the ability to read other people, which is stuff that we're trained in, right? So I'm watching it from a hypnosis NLP perspective. But the other funny thing that's dropped in, so the characters, for some reason, whoever created this show, drop in this weird seminar.
Oh,
this
fuck,
weird
I forgot about
seminar that
it's
is
Est. It's based on Est. Yes.
That is an interesting thread throughout the show as well. So they got Est thrown in there, and then this daughter starts to be taken to a church. So you've got Est and you've got like Christianity as interesting threads about how to guide one's life. And I swear to you, I spent so much time yelling at the child, like yelling at the TV at this child who strangely is raised by these two parents.
Daughter?
The daughter.
Yes.
She somehow in the 80s she's decided that her life is so weird and hard and horrible, but she has no clue what her parents have been through in their lives. And I'm like, obviously, at some level, they can't necessarily like give their lived experience. Like I grew up with my own personal traumas in my family, but I was also raised by somebody who had a highly traumatic life. So like, I get to own my trauma, and I'm just lucky that I'm just like 100 explosions less awful was my childhood than my mother's. And so she wins, and that's also a problem. But this kid having no emotional resiliency, having no sense of responsibility, I just wanted to throttle her through the TV. So fascinating. But that dynamic is also the complex dynamic between like Russia and the US. And it's like the themes and metaphors in the show were fantastic. My favorite part, though, is that their thematic world choice was to make it as most realistic as possible, because there's not like a filter.
No.
And because it's the 80s, shit takes longer, and they don't rush any of that. Like a lot of things will montage the shit out of the detailed spy work, which is just waiting around and suddenly getting a phone call and walking to a thing and then like something
that part of it
not working out, and then we're just not talking about it because shit just like, well, we're not on that anymore. Like the slowness of this show was fucking delicious.
Yes.
That's one of the things I loved.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen the show.
Yeah.
There was something you said earlier that made me think of I had something to share, and now I can't.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I'm thinking is they do so much in this show. I mean, it's a slow burn kind of show, and they do so much with silence and glances and non-verbal communication. That's really tricky. If you suck at acting or if you're not capturing the moment.
The two leads are fucking phenomenal. Like I watched that show and was like, this is some of the best acting, and the chemistry between the two of them. They're actually a couple, right? I think that's the case. I think that's part of the reason why, and it may have happened during the show. I can't remember.
Oh, that would make so much sense.
The chemistry is so good that it really makes me think you have to have that. You almost have to have that. Not that you have to have that kind of intimacy, but it helps.
Let me see.
I remember the comment I was going to make before. Yeah. There's a screenwriting principle that when one of the characters doesn't know something that the audience does know, there's an instantaneous and automatic tension.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at it and going, oh, but they don't know, but I know, but they don't know.
Yeah.
And this show is nothing but that.
Yes.
Like every interaction is this person's lying about this to this person and they're hiding this from this other person, and the FBI and the relationship with that girlfriend who he ends up marrying, I think. Like, God damn. It's so multi-layered. And I do think the foundation of shit like this really happened. Maybe not this exactly, maybe not every single thing in here, but shit like this really happened. And then it just makes you go, well, you think it's not happening now? Like, you think they probably have figured out how to be better at this stuff. Like, you think we're not doing this?
Yeah, no. Like, I just kept thinking, God, this would be so much easier if they could just text each other right now.
Well, yeah,
that's the thing. It was like, I remember rotary phones and the thing, and
I remember somebody commenting that if you watch old sitcoms like Friends or Seinfeld, that almost every single plot line is broken by cell phones, because every plot line is one person leaves and then another person shows up and goes, where is so-and-so? Oh, they just left. You just missed them. And like every single story breaks down. Like, no, wait there. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Oh, okay. And then there's no drama anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of the like ploys for drama, so cell phones crack that one. The other thing that I kept wanting to like, and it's not just the show lately. Apparently there are humans. Okay. There's a whole list of things I complain about. I don't understand. This one's short. Do people really just look at themselves in mirrors or talk to themselves in mirrors or have so many fucking mirrors in their life that in order to like reveal their inner works, they have to like stare at a mirror and have some revelation or something? I don't fucking think that happens as much as it happens in TV shows.
Certainly not as much, but I do think some people do it.
Sure. Okay. So the other thing is, do people really just yell out awful things and then leave the fucking room? Or are people yelling and leaving the middle of the conversations because they watch it and see it on TV? Like, so many things could just be resolved if you stick around another fucking 5 minutes for people to explain the thing that happened from their own perspective instead of the thing you just made up and are blaming them for. And I'm just like, fuck sake, stay in the room. Sit down.
Well, but Adrianne, the problem then is that people would actually resolve their conflicts, and you're not supposed to do that in stories. Not till the end.
Well, my fear is that people might think that it's appropriate to just leave and not resolve stuff.
Absolutely. I think that there is like relationships are a perfect example. Mm-hmm. You don't have movies. Name fucking one movie or TV show where the point of the story is that this couple has an amazing relationship and they get along super great and they support each other and they love each other and they work through their conflicts easily and quickly. There's that doesn't exist, because what we need to make the story compelling is drama, and that always requires somebody being stupid. Somebody has to be like, well, I'm not going to forgive that person. And like, yeah, but if you want to have a good relationship, you both have to be quick and ready to forgive.
Yeah.
And that's not good television.
Here are humans who have been raised watching only these relationships.
Right. We have no models.
How they fucking work. And we keep waiting for the magical tension of the blah, 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 and like drop in and you find your one or whatever because of the romance of like, you know what would be sexy? People fighting well and then deepening their love because they allowed their conflict to engage in more connection.
You know, the one place where I would say you see more of that is stories where that's not the point. it's not a romance. It's not about the relationship. There is a relationship in it, but the story is a science fiction story, for example, because there are there's some good examples ish of relationships in Farscape, the sci-fi show that we love so much. There's some relationships there where they have conflict and then they go away and they come back and they work through it and they are closer because of that. But the deal there is it's not about the relationship. If it's about the relationship, there needs to be drama and conflict, which means the relationship can't be perfect or even healthy enough to work through things quickly. Otherwise, it would be like, hey, what you said just hurt my feelings. Oh, I'm really sorry about that. What do I need to do to make this better? Oh, well, having this conversation helps. Right? Yeah, and then it's over.
Yeah. Well, I think if anything is primed to be able to do it, to actually show us a good example of people fighting, loving in a particular way that's actually useful and health filled, would be television, because it's the only form where you can spend time with people. I don't know. I think I was saying that like Xena Warrior Princess is sort of close because they had a lot of conflict and what it looks like to have a relationship evolve and goals change, but they still renegotiating how the structure of that partnership is.
Well, this gets a little bit into my conversation and frustration about there being no good Star Trek for like decades at this point, because the thing that Gene Roddenberry was so adamant about, particularly in Next Generation, was that the drama and conflict was never allowed to be in the crew or the team. It was always supposed to be something outside, a challenge outside that they are facing together. And the team cohesiveness, it's like he wanted to say, we figured this shit out. Like, we figured out how to work together. We figured out money. We don't deal money anymore. We figured out, like, we've as a civilization, we've dedicated ourselves to scientific progress and exploration and art and helping improve the lives of everyone. And he would not let it be about jealousy or about interpersonal stuff. So I think we need more of those shows, frankly.
I'm definitely looking forward to whoever comes up with the next. I know it's challenging to have the kind of creativity where you can envision a world that doesn't have our history. I know that the producers of the 100 were striving towards creating a different paradigms and doing a bigger, much like The Good Place was set up around philosophy and wanting to present an amazingly entertaining philosophy course, right? I think the 100 was working towards that, of this future world and people showing things from different people's perspectives, recognizing that everybody like comes and they're doing the best they can with their resources. That's cool. And there's a lot of stuff that's just not there, like the pretense of who people are attracted to, that's not there. But fuck's sake, like I'm waiting for humans having open conversations and showing up open-minded with their heart, or it doesn't have to be humans, beings showing up to each other, or like just because someone has boobs and a stranger shows up, they're not going to rape that person. That would be ridiculous. Like, wouldn't that be great? Why we can't imagine a future or beings that just wouldn't just rape things and exploit stuff. I don't know. Like, I think I'm ready for someone to create some sort of show that is from a whole fucking different world. I don't think we've done it.
I think that a lot of that is it's about the monetary system of movies and TV. And the system sucks in a lot of ways because it won't foster and support art that doesn't fit a certain very narrow band of commercial appeal. And if you just have people who have the money, who have a worldview that apocalypse sells, like that's the thing that makes people buy stuff, and a beautiful future utopia does not. there was one episode
Yeah.
of a show called Stargate SG-1 that I watched religiously for a while. And there was an episode where they ran into a group of humans on another planet that didn't have the Dark Ages.
Okay.
And specifically, they made a big point about religion and the problem that religion played. And their civilization had started at the same time as ours, but they were 800 years ahead of us.
Nice. Nice.
Because they hadn't had the Dark Ages. And I remember one line in particular where one of the characters was the Earthling characters was a quantum physicist and was explaining quantum physics to them, and they were like, oh yeah, we kind of moved past that about 300 years ago. And and I remember she said, like, the line was, "You licked quantum physics." That has always stuck in my head, of like running into a civilization that's like, yeah, quantum physics, that was a pretty good explanation for things, but actually that's not really how it works. We found a better model that's past that.
It's fucking awesome. I love it. I do remember that the world in Her was pretty like kind of fun. If you remember that.
It was positive. I felt like there was a kind of weird, almost Black Mirror dystopian thing that was hinted at, like just the loneliness of everything.
Fair.
But then it was saying, like, technology might actually help with this. I've been listening to a podcast lately with a guy named Lex Friedman, who's a AI researcher, PhD, very young, but he has a podcast where he interviews really smart people. He works at MIT, so he has access to a lot of things. So he was interviewing this woman about Her, and like they were talking about the movie, and they were talking about she works on that kind of stuff. She works on AI therapy. Like they're working on creating artificial intelligent therapy companions and things. And she is one of the cutting edge thinkers in that. And she was talking about how she was like, I think it's so funny that Her and Ex Machina came out within fairly. Did you see Ex Machina?
I don't think I have, no.
Those are a perfect movie night. Like, if you're going to do a double feature, watch Her and Ex Machina and be like, here's the two outcomes for AI. And it's very, we definitely do have a distrust that I think is founded in there. Mm-hmm. And the reason why artificial intelligence is not going anywhere, like we can't put this genie back in the bottle, is because it simultaneously has the power to destroy all of us, the potential to destroy all of us, but it also has the potential to do literally anything you can imagine. Like it is the thing that could unlock everything for us. And at the same time, it's incredibly dangerous. And, Pandora's box certainly is an apt analogy.
Yeah, I'm hoping that what might happen is that the people who create it may actually put it on and then have an experience that accidentally reteaches them empathy. There are studies that showcase like people's at levels of power get distance because they can't relate to people any longer because they're just nobody's at their level. So it kicks in a little like sociopathy, but like, couldn't it be interesting if putting on AI? I don't know. I'm just thinking like, I don't know whether there are enough benevolent people with resources that are creating this stuff. I want to have the faith that they're going to make like therapy and all these other and those things are going to get funded and come out first. I would love for that to happen.
First, I don't know about that.
Well, the weapons version.
Sex robots. That's what's going to happen first.
Why would you need do you need the robot to interact with the virtual? Like, are you wearing a thing? And like, because if you've got if you've got the image, do you actually have
Well, I suppose virtual orgy is fine. like I'm saying, like when the point at which virtual reality becomes indistinguishable enough from reality, it doesn't even have to be completely indistinguishable, but the point when it becomes indistinguishable enough, I am still holding out the possibility that we may lose like an entire generation of children that are not born, because there are people who will just go, this reality that I'm living in here is so much better than this reality. And there will almost be an exodus from reality into virtual reality.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's good or bad necessarily. I am saying I don't really see how that could not happen.
Well, if we all could be guided back gently by Julianne Moore, then it'll be okay. I'm trying to refer to the
Julianne Moore.
That's the movie. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in this movie where he's like addicted to porn.
I think it was something like Joe or like
Joe something. Yeah.
I didn't see it.
So at the end of the movie, Julianne
Spoilers
Moore
again.
is just kind of like a 40-year-old hippie-esque lady that's just like, you know what? Bush exists, hair is there, and people smell, and shit's going on, and that's what's fascinating. And look, this tension and connection, and that it's the good stuff. So if we all have just a band of Julianne Moore types during that situation.
Yeah, but what if there is an even smarter Julianne Moore in the virtual space, and she has hair and smells? Like there comes a point when the only difference between the reality and the virtual reality is your knowledge that one of them is real and one of them is not.
Right. And it's also not predictable.
Right. Right. Yeah, there are some very deep philosophical holes you start stumbling down as soon as you start talking about things like AI or very quickly after you start talking about AI and virtual reality, that you start getting down into Matrix, NLP, like, are we in a simulation right now? How do you know you're not? And yeah. I don't know. I'm more for it though. In the last than I ever was before. I'm my perspective is always that I am like agnostically optimistic, in the sense that I think there's probably like a 90% chance that we're going to make it, because I think humans are resilient, and like we don't want everyone to die for the most part. So I think we're going to try to figure it out. And I believe in human ingenuity, and even global warming, as difficult as that might be, I think we will find solutions to deal with it and overcome it, or even potentially reverse it. But I think there's a 10% chance we'll absolutely wipe out everybody. I don't really see a lot in the middle. Like, I think we're going to get to utopia, or we're going to die trying.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. Maybe there is just a never-ending mediocrity that like goes out into the future 400 years, and everybody's still miserable, but in different ways.
There is the version where the choice is to just be like terrified of everything and not pursue it.
Yeah. Think about this. Like, when it comes to stuff like, let's just say trauma, right? In the last 10 to 20 years, the amount of real scientific breakthroughs in the realm of healing trauma is it's incredible. And we've really gotten to the point now that we know that everybody's traumatized, and we know how big a deal it is, and we know how to fix it. Yeah. Like, there are predictable ways to go in and heal these things. It takes work. It's not easy, but you can do it. Totally. The biggest challenge right now is there's still a misconception that only people who are broken need therapy.
Yes.
And if these ideas, if more and more people start being like one person's struggling so much, they go get help. And then it actually works. And they come back and the people around them are like, wow, that actually worked. That happens again and again and again and again. And more, the idea that therapy is a good idea is becoming commonplace, and more people talk about it. It's becoming normalized. I see that as one of the biggest hopes. Psychedelic research, that's a huge one for me too, personally, is that I think the actual research on things like MDMA and psilocybin to help people to break down trauma and to break down old entrenched patterns of thinking and belief systems, that stuff gives me a lot of hope. That stuff makes me think we could see a mass movement of real improvement in people.
Absolutely. I've been geeking out on aging research, lifespan stuff.
Yeah.
And that's coming pretty soon.
Yeah. Aubrey de Grey. Do you know who that is? Aubrey de Grey. He's like, we will cure death. That's his big thing. And he's like, maybe not in my lifetime, but maybe in your kid's lifetime.
Yeah. The idea that aging is a disease, and then that's the underlying disease of all disease. And if we actually put our money into that, then we don't have to be worrying about cancer and heart disease and all these other things. I think the timeline for that is probably optimistic, but the science, when really smart people lay this out and they're like, listen, there are no problems here that from a physics standpoint are impossible to solve. We don't have the technology to solve a lot of these problems, but there's no fundamental reason why they couldn't be solved at some point as technology continues to improve. Yet again, one of the reasons why AI could mean everything, because AI could literally be the ticket to immortality potentially. Fascinating. Yeah.
Wow, we got off on a little bit of a tangent here, and it's also been over an hour, so maybe we should wrap up the show.
Okie dokie. Welcome to the Enlightened Couch Potato Show. I'm Adrianne Gunn. This has been Nicholas, and now we're done.
Can we have that be the end every time? And now we're done. Click.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks for coming to the show, everybody. Bye-bye.
Perfect.